Hey everybody, welcome back. It's the Razzball Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I am Pete joined by the handsome-looking fellow across the screen from me, the fantasy master Lothario himself, Gray Albert. How you doing over there, Gray?
Hey, well, thanks for noticing my handsomeness. I'm doing pretty good. Beat on. I was watching the Dahmer Netflix what is it? Miniseries. I don't even
Mhm.
know. Maybe it's just a series. I don't know. It's awful. Anyway, I was watching that, and on my Apple TV, I got a notification that Pujols was going for 700, and this was obviously Friday, and I got a notification from Apple TV saying Pujols going for 700, and I know from just like following baseball that he was going into the game going for 699. So I was like, Apple TV's wrong. Not right. It's not right. That's not accurate. It's not. He's not going. He's going for 700 eventually, but he has to get 699 first. So what I didn't realize was he already hit 699 in that game. So I was watching a terrible Dahmer TV show, and I could have just flipped the channel and watched Pujols hit 700, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like in today's day and age, you just watch the replay, and it's like, it's sort of the same thing. Isn't it though? I mean, it's like it's kind of the same. I mean, it's a replay, but it's like it's not like it's 19, 27, and like Babe Ruth's like calling his shot, and there's no video. It's like you can just watch the replay, right? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, unless you're there in the stadium, to some extent, you're always watching a replay because they
Yeah.
delay it anyway. So you're watching a replay of a replay, and you just go to like Twitter or Instagram or whatever your social media happens to be and see it there, like right after it happens too. So, yeah, I'm with you. You
Oh,
don't have to really see it live
that's such a good
anymore.
point. I love that. I love that. I love that point, B Don. I'm gonna use that. I'm gonna steal that from you because it's like you're totally right. Everything's a replay. life life is like just sit and watch TV because everything's a replay. I
Yeah, I mean, if you can be
and
there live, that'd be
I
great.
also, I mean, I could have actually could have went to Dodger Stadium because it's only like 5 minutes from my house, so I could have actually been there and watched it live. But yeah, I mean, what's the difference really? What's the difference between me watching it live at Dodger Stadium or me sitting at home watching a bad show about Jeffrey Dahmer eating a human heart and Coog saying to me, "Have you taken out the trash?" I mean, what's the difference, really? It's
Yeah, I
the
mean,
same.
I guess you could have caught it and then, made some money. That would be the one like life-changing possibility if you happened to be in the stadium when it happened.
You know
Although
what I'll say though?
Pujols wasn't given anything, he says.
No, no, yeah, and I also, yeah, I would have. Because it's pool holes, I would have actually worked out a deal with his ex-wife and sold it to her for like $1, and then let her figure out what to do with it. But no, but honestly though, Dodger Stadium for whatever reason, like every Twitter or Instagram or YouTube or whatever your social media choice is, whatever every handle that is like stadiumfights.com. It's always in Dodger Stadium. I don't know why, because like my hometown here, LA, is more or less, I mean, it's kind of peaceful. I don't know. Like, I don't have any real issues. Like, when I go out to like restaurants or something, I don't know. Maybe I'm living a charmed life. But Dodger Stadium, like, you go in there and you will get beat up. So so maybe I could have caught the ball, but I absolutely would not have gone out of the stadium with it. There's no
Look,
way.
you may step on somebody's like Balenciagos or like, I don't know, Gray. Something may happen in Dodger Stadium that causes that to happen. You step in front of somebody's, TikTok shot. Like there's all sorts of things that can happen in Dodger
Oh,
Stadium.
oh, man, you missed on my TikTok shot.
You know that's been at least one fight, Gray. At least one fight in Dodger Stadium this year was because somebody messed up a TikTok shot.
I'm doing today. I'm at Dodger Stadium doing a ALS TikTok challenge. Hey man, you just walked in front of my shot. Dude, what's your problem? I'm trying to do an ALS challenge. You walked in front of my shot. Yeah. There's probably been at least a few fights over that. Yeah, and then Judge over in where I think he's in Toronto now. He honestly like watch it because I watched all of Judge's at bats this weekend, at least most of them. And I would say
it's all nothing.
Like Bayo Bayo on Sunday night, he was pitching really well. And like Rich Hill and Nick Pivetta, the Red Sox really pitched him so well. I don't know if it's like the stress of like the 61 or what, but yeah, I mean the Red Sox looked good. I mean, not their fielding's still a mess, and they have issues, but their pitching actually, when they were pitching the Judge, it looked pretty good. I was surprised. I was impressed by Pivetta, Hill, and Bayo. But yeah, I feel like I was saying, I think like 2 weeks ago, that Judge, I put him down for 66 homers after the preseason where I put him down for probably like 39. Let's be honest, I didn't.
Then we're gonna do it again. The same thing's gonna happen again.
66, like for the first 5 months of the season, I didn't project him for 66. Let's be honest, I only did that in like the last 3 weeks. But yeah, I don't know at this point. He may not even get 63. I don't know. And then again, before this, pod comes out, he may already have 63. Who's to say? I don't know. But but I was surprised. He looked like he was pressing a little bit. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess we'll see. He's definitely. He'll probably definitely get, I would say he's probably going to get 62 at least, but who knows? I don't know. I'm just guessing. I guessed 66 a couple weeks ago, like I said, so I don't know. But Aaron Judge though, like on Friday night, I think it was Apple TV. I believe it was Apple TV. They went and they were talking to Roger Maris Jr. and his family, and the family was like, oh no, we still believe Roger Maris has the home run record. And it's like, guys, I was watching you in '98 follow Mark McGwire around the entire country. How are you gonna say that you think Roger Maris still, like, come on, man? Like, that's such revisionist crap. Like, get out of here with that nonsense. That is so annoying. Like, if anyone should accept that his dad's record it's like, you were there, bro. You watched McGwire hit the home run, man. I mean, anyway, you got any thoughts on Judge?
Well, I mean, I guess on the first part there, or I guess the last part that you mentioned, the family part. Yeah, I mean, they're just looking to make money every time this comes up as a topic. So yeah, they'll just say it every time, and they'll just get free tickets and free flights and move around the country with the team. So I guess good for them. On Judge versus like Pujols, I feels like people were throwing like just meatballs up to Pujols, and the opposite is now happening to Judge. Now Judge is at like 60, and nobody wants to give up the next like 3 home runs. So everybody's like just throwing breaking balls outside the zone. If Judge wants to get there, he's going to have to chase.
What? Actually,
nobody cared about giving up.
Actually, you know what? I think Judge could get to 73 homers because I just saw on the schedule he's going to be facing Jose Berrios. So I take it back. Judge might get 80 homers if he's able to face Jose Berrios even in one game. That could get any hitter going.
It could. It definitely could this year. Oh, Jose, you've been tough to roster this year. I guess in regards to Pujols, if I got the ball from Pujols, like I'd probably burn it since I'm a Cubs fan, or maybe donate to the Cubs so the Cubs can like put it up on display. Be like, oh, here's Pujols' 700.
Burn it, bro. Come on, you wouldn't burn it, bro. Come on, you would. Honestly, I would have the eBay listing up before I left the stadium. I would be so. I mean, seriously, like all jokes aside, like you could get enough money to buy a house or something. Like it's like, of course you take the money, you know. Like I'm sorry, like and there's a lot of people that are like, especially Twitter. I feel like Twitter's filled with a lot of people who like they say things just to get like brownie points with like the world or I don't know what they're
Whoever
doing.
is judging them on Twitter.
Yeah, like I don't know if they're saying stuff that's like reality based or if they're saying stuff just to get like a pat on the back like on Twitter, but like no one is catching Judge's homer and being like, "Here, take it. I just want a signed baseball." Like I mean, come on, man. Like it's like he's going to be worth $300 million at the end of this year. The Yankees are worth $3 billion. I mean, just take $1 million and be
I'll
done.
take 1% of Judge's next contract.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
1% of his next
Exactly.
contract, which is
Yeah,
again like $3.5 million.
honestly, let the Yankees buy the ball for him. I mean, it's like, come on, man. Like, let MLB buy the ball. I don't know. Let someone buy the ball. It's
I
like,
don't know. I feel like I'd rather sell it to Judge than the Yankees because he may not be there.
yeah, or yeah, but he still did it on the Yankees. So the Yankees are still
Yeah, but
will
screw
still
the
get
Yankees.
Yankees. And then Pujols, yeah, you take Pujols, definitely you put that shit on eBay. Or you do like I said, sell it to the wife. The wife will pay like 10 million for that ball just to blow it up.
Yeah,
Anyway.
it's getting displayed in the middle of the bleachers in Wrigley. If I caught that ball from Pujols, that's where it's going, Gray. I will donate that one and sit it in the middle of Wrigley just so that it's never in St. Louis hands. All right, Gray. Let's move on from the records. That really doesn't have anything to do with the game that we're here to talk about, which is the fantasy side. 10 days left, so I hope everybody's grinding for those last few points. Really, as far as picking up players, we're kind of done with that because obviously you know what you got to do. You basically playing whoever's playing that day because there's so many people sitting and resting anymore. But let's talk about some guys for what they've done here in this second half and then looking forward to next year, Gray. Let's start with Adley Rutschman. He was one of the top prospects in the game. On the baseball side of the non-fantasy side, he might have been the number one prospect just because he's a catcher. Catcher gets that big bump. But second half, he's hit 283, 404, 468. He has 7 home runs, 3 stolen bases. On the last 30-day play rater, he is the number 5 catcher. He is number 11 catcher on the season without playing all the season up in the majors. Where's he going to fit? I know we're probably not going to end up with him on our teams because we don't draft catchers early, Gray. But where's he going to end up among catchers next year? Is he a first tier catcher, like maybe the top of the second tier? Where are you at on?
Uh, yeah, no, he's a first tier catcher, I think. Probably. I wasn't anticipating getting doing my catcher rankings today, but Salvador Perez, Real Muto, Adelaide sounds about right, right? I mean, it's subject to change, obviously, but yeah, I mean, that seems more or less correct, I think, unless I'm forgetting someone, which I don't think I am. Contreras is there, but I think Adelaide's in front of Contreras. Both Contrerases are there. Contrari. Yeah, I think Adelaide. There was a tweet by a Orioles beat writer Nathan Ruiz that our writer JKJ, our bullpen guy JKJ, he put it into the group chat where Adley Rutschman has 12 homers, 31 doubles, 58 walks, and that for those random, it's a bit random. 12 homers, 31 doubles, and 58 walks is a bit random, but in 115 games, the only other people who have done that in Major League history are Goldschmidt, Votto, Big Papi, Chipper Jones, Jeff Bagwell, and Frank Thomas. So pretty elite company, obviously. So I mean, that's the kind of names that if you're like as a rookie, Adley Rutschman is being clumped in with those names, even if those are kind of random stats. That's pretty impressive. Like he is honestly, if he's the number one catcher next year, at the end of the year, that is. Not, I don't think he's going to get ranked number one because, like I said, I think Perez and Real Muto are probably be in front of him, but if he's the number one catcher at the end of the year next year, I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, he is really talented. The only problem I feel like with Salvador Perez has a lot more power, and Real Muto actually might steal 20 bags this year. And Rushman has no real speed. I mean, a little bit, but not really. Like three to six steals in a year, which I mean isn't bad for a catcher, but it's not like it's not going to be Real Muto's 20. But Adley Rutschman probably 20. He doesn't have I don't think he has like 40 homer power, which Sal Perez could potentially have. I think Adley Rutschman's probably going to be like maybe 25 homer, 5 steal, 280 average, which is really good. Like, don't get me wrong, like that's solid. Oh, Dalton Varsho is probably in that range too because he's going to have outfielder at bats. But anyway, yeah, I think Adley Rutschman's definitely going to be at least top 4, if not top 3 catcher for next year. I think he's probably at least a 50-50 bet to be the number one catcher after next year. Like he's going up where the other guys who I mentioned, like Sal Perez and Real Muto, they're on their way down. So Adley Rutschman's like, he's peaking. I think, I mean, there's no way I'm going to actually have him on any teams. I think he'll go way before I'm going to be willing to draft him. So, I mean, maybe I could see ADP on him. I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the top 75 drafted wise. At least top 100, I would say. People always shock me about drafting catchers way before I would. So I wouldn't be surprised if like people are jumping on him like in the top 50. It wouldn't shock me, because like people get out of their minds about like drafting catchers early, and they do dumb shit. Quite frankly, when it comes to catchers. So it's not what I would do, but I wouldn't be shocked if Adley Rutschman goes at least top 75 overall next year and maybe top 50. And yeah, I won't be rostering him, but yeah, he's really good. I mean, it's all real. Like, I don't see anything that's pointing to me saying like, oh, he's going to be a bust. Like, I don't think he's going to be a bust. I just am not willing to pay for a catcher.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's how you and I have always been. That's just kind of how we approach our team builds. I mean, Real Muto's stolen bases are pretty much going to keep him up there as long as he's stealing. And like you said, there's Salvador Perez, who I honestly think I'm taking Adley over Salvador Perez at this point, just because Salvador hit 22 home runs. He hit like 260, 270 this year. Like that's pretty much the line I expect from Adley, and Adley's on the upside while we have Salvador going to age 33 season, so my ages is going to kick in. So I'm probably going to have Adley above him. So yeah, I mean, I think it's Realmuto, Varsho, Will Smith, and Adley kind of in that top 4 with, depending on where Contreras lands, and then, how much you want to believe in Salvador Perez, kind of the power and the bounce back in the second half. But yeah, I think Adley's square in that top 5 for me as a first-tier catcher that I won't own.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
All right, moving on. Andres Gimenez. I know we've talked about him it's probably like a couple months ago now, but a little bit more information on him now. For the season, he's 303, 375, 482. He's hit 17 home runs, 19 stolen bases, 64 runs, 68 RBIs in 139 games. In the second half, he hit 311, 395, 486 with 7 home runs and 12 stolen bases. He is the number 48 player on the season player rater, and that is overall. That's including pitchers. Where are you at on Andres Gimenez going next year?
I think I don't think my mind has changed that much from last time we talked about him. Where like I do think he's probably going to be drafted and ranked lower than his value even this year. Like and he's only 23, so it's like why would he be, why would he be someone who would not be as good next year as like, because that's what I think his drafting his ranks are going to say. Like, they're going to say he's going to come down from his top 50 perch on the player rater this year. And I don't know why that will be. I don't think anyone's going to really be able to pinpoint why. I guess, the biggest issue with him is he probably doesn't have like, huge power or speed. So he's a little bit like, 2020 is good, but if it becomes 15-15, then it's kind of boring, and it's easier to avoid a guy like that. But like I said, he's young, so I wouldn't be shocked to see him still get better next year. Like right now, he's at 17, 19, 303. I could potentially see like his power even get even better. Like he's maybe not tremendously better, but I wouldn't be shocked to see him put up like a maybe 24 homers, and he's got better speed than 20 steal speed. So, potentially 20, 25, 275, 285. Like he's also like he makes good contact, so he's not necessarily a bad bet for a terrible average. Like he hit 303 this year with a little bit of BABIP help. So I mean, I wouldn't be shocked to see him hit like anywhere from average is so fluky and fickle that he could hit anywhere from like 265 to 320. So I mean that's a huge gap, but more realistically, he's probably a 280 hitter, which isn't bad. I mean that's solid, especially in today's game where the major league average is like 245. So yeah, I mean if he goes like 22 to 24 homers, 25 steals, and a 280 average, that's definitely top 50, if not top 30 overall for next year. I wouldn't be shocked to see him ranked and drafted like 75 to 100. Maybe, I could see him even fall even later. I don't think people really appreciate Andres Gimenez.
Yeah, I don't think he's getting the discussion that he should be coming up on a 2020 season with dual eligibility. I think he only maintains second base next year, but I'll have to verify that. But yeah, I think he could go a little under noticed as people are taking names like Carlos Correa and like the guys in that range that are going in that 100, like as guys are taking names that they recognize, like Andres Gimenez isn't going to be a name people recognize, but like from a home run stolen base, I would expect him to be equal, if not above somebody like a Correa. Correa gets a little bit more value because he hits, middle lineup and all of that. And supposedly there's upside, but it's still been like 7 years now. We haven't seen Correa's upside. So I'm just assuming it's not happening.
Oh yeah, and even I think Correa too. Like even his upside, he doesn't have any speed at all. So his upside is like 32 homers, 280, which isn't bad because it'll come with good runs and RBIs. But it's not like his upside is like lurking in there as like a 30-20 player. Like he doesn't have any speed at all. So yeah, I don't understand the Correa attraction really at all. I think it comes from the fact that he's like a guy who gets a lot of media attention. So I think people just naturally like they think he's better than he is, because it's like, oh, Correa was on, they talk to him like after a game. So it's like for some reason people think that has something to do with fantasy. I don't know.
Yeah. I guess let's throw a few kind of middle infielders out that are going to go around him, I would guess, next year. Maybe just depending on name recognition. But how about Xander Bogaerts, who's had, obviously a down season?
Yeah, no, I think Bogarts is like Bogarts for me is probably he's probably going before I'm drafting him. I'm worried about Bogarts. Like this year was really bad. I mean the average is still there, but I mean, the average is like, like I always say, I mean, average is fickle. It's fluky. If you can't support, like, like he's hitting less power than Jimenez, way less speed than Jimenez. Yeah, I'm out on Bogarts, I think.
All right. How about Corey Seager, who gave us the power this year, stayed healthy for the most part, but then the average plummeted, which was the thing we thought was safe with him. Would you rather have Seager or Jimenez?
I think I'm gonna go Seager barely, but probably pretty close. I think Seager's power is real, and I think his average can bounce back. So I'm actually usually I'm out on Seager, but I'm kind of in on Seager. I think Seager's got more. He's still got more in him that like could potentially be positive. A guy who I think is probably like because his second half was not as great and who's probably on the outs in most people's eyes as like a potential like worry, maybe there's a worry for a platoon is like a Tommy Edman. I think still is probably going to be underrated. Like I get that he wasn't as good in the second half and he's probably, like there's some concerns there, but he's still got power and speed and like that goes really far. Like that changes like the whole dynamics of a player. Like, people I think are surprised that like a Tommy Edman, as as much as he struggled, he's still around a top 30 player on the player radar. Like that's still really valuable.
Yeah, and I think the struggle narrative was a little bit strong even because he hit 259 in the first half. He's hitting 266 in the second half. He had 7 home runs first, 6 now. He had 20 stolen bases first half, 11 now, and that's with a little bit of being banged up. So like I feel like the Tommy Edman narrative has gone a little bit far just because he started out so scorching hot, hitting 300 and like 280 for the first 2 months. That people all of a sudden built him up as this 280, 45 steal, like 20 homer guy, which he was never going to be. He's like a 250, 260, 30 home runs, 10 to 15 home run guy, and that's what he's going to do. And
Right.
there's value in that. I agree.
Yeah, no, totally. Like, as of the recording of this, Tommy Edman and JT Realmuto are basically tied on the player rater at like 32 and 33 overall. Like, just obviously different positions. So that might change people's perceptions, but it shouldn't. Like position scarcity is like a myth. So they should not be as different as they will be in the preseason next year. Like Real Muto will probably be knocking on like top 25 overall. And Tommy Edman may not make top 100 in some people's drafts. Like it's going to be ridiculous how different they're going to be in 2023 when rankings and drafting comes out. But like Edman, I would trust Edman to repeat more than I trust JT Realmuto.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that he's a catcher always makes that just really hard to count on year to year. Which I'm just going to continue to pound into everybody's ears until they finally listen to us and stop drafting catchers in the first 3 rounds. But that's never going to happen. But yeah, I'm with you. I think Andres Gimenez goes a little underdrafted potentially. I think Seager probably goes overdrafted, which is why I probably won't be in on him. People always love Seager. The projection models, Rudy's projection models in particular, always love Seager. So he tends to go just earlier than I want him. Whereas I think Jimenez is going to fall to an area where I'm going to be happy to take him. And I think just looking at second base, Gray, second base is going to be pretty awful next year. We're losing Trey. Um, I mean, that's a big loss at the top side. And I mean, Simeon, I think right now is the Simeon and Altuve and Edman are probably the 3 that are sitting at the top right now of second base. So I don't know that Jimenez is that far off. I mean, Albies gets thrown into there. Obviously, he missed pretty much the whole season, but I mean, Jimenez is going to be I don't know what, top 7, top 8 second baseman at worst.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely. I really don't think he's gonna drafted anywhere like near where we're saying his value could be. So yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah. So we'll check back in on Gimenez as we get closer to draft season or as NFBC starts firing up and we get some ADP numbers. Seth Brown, this one's just random as hell, Gray. Second half, he's at 261, 358, 554. I mean, that's a great slash line. He's number 32 on the last 30-day hitter player rater. Will enter his age 30 season next year. I mean, is this something here in the second half that we should be monitoring, or is this just a random couple months from a 29-year-old bat?
Seth Brown is next year could be entering his Aaron Judge year. Could be. Seth Brown incoming 60 20 320. Seth Brown, baby. Yeah, I don't know. I think Seth Brown is probably, I mean, he feels like a guy who just happens to be hot. I don't know. I mean, his numbers aren't awful. Like you mentioned, like his power. I mean, if he can get 27 homers and 10 steals, that's really valuable. I just don't know. Like, his steals feel like they've come a little bit out of nowhere. I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, he's just like his downside feels so bad that I get worried that like I could see him potentially being like a like around 175 to 200 overall, maybe a little bit a hair before that, maybe 150 to 175 overall next year, and the potential of having like 27 homer, 10 steals, 240. But also, I think the downside is just like he's like basically droppable in the first month. Like I don't,
Yeah.
like that's the concern with Seth Brown. Like I think the downside could be really bad. Like unownable, really. So yeah, I mean he seems fine. Like the numbers more or less check out. Like he's his fly balls are fine. His ground balls, like it doesn't look like it's necessarily a luck thing. Like his launch angle's pretty good. It's around 15.6. Not around. It is essentially that. His hard hit percentage is decent. Like he doesn't hit a lot of soft contact. Yeah, I mean it looks good. I just don't know if it's more or less like it feels kind of fluky because it's Seth Brown and I don't know. I don't know, man. I'm not totally sold. Like he could be a cheap let's say Anthony Rizzo next year. Like someone who, and he's even better than Anthony Rizzo, I think. At least, recently for sure, at least in the second half. So yeah, I mean, his runs and RBIs aren't going to be great. He's fine. I don't necessarily think like he was like around the 20th first baseman. I think last week. I think he's moved up to 19 now. He's around the same area as Josh Bell. I think their seasons have kind of gone the opposite ways. Like Josh Bell was good in the first half, Seth Brown was better in the second half. So, but that sounds about right. Like I think Seth Brown is probably a a sort of like a solid bet to have like a either a top 20 first baseman season, like barely, or be droppable. I don't really see a next level in him necessarily. So I don't know.
Yeah, so I mean, I think Seth Brown is pretty much what you said. I mean, he's hitting really well right now. He's going to end up with 25 home runs on the season in 150, 145 games, something like that. So I mean, he's had a full season. I think maybe the issue that keeps his value from even going, any more than what it is right now is just like he's on a terrible, terrible roster with a terrible lineup that has no intention of getting better. And so, like, the runs and RBI are just killing any kind of value he could potentially produce. Because if he did this in a good lineup, he'd have 75, 80 RBI runs and RBIs to bank with this 25 home runs. So I'm with you that he's kind of going to slide a little bit. I do think I'm a little bit interested in him kind of in that 160, 180 range, kind of where like maybe like where Rizzo went this year. I could see him putting up kind of a Rizzo-esque season where it's kind of up and down with the average, but the power is kind of there. And he sits in the right part of the lineup.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Like a cheap Rizzo.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Moving on to another 30-year-old, Joey Meneses. Meneses? I don't know. 46 games this year. He's hitting 326, 360, 583, 12 home runs, one stolen base. Brown, where all the numbers kind of line up. I believe he has a 17% home run to fly ball. Well, Joey has a 28% home run to fly ball, so that stands out a little bit in what may not be repeatable. But where are you at on Joey?
Yeah, I mean, he feels like a guy who is going to be like, completely forgotten by this time next year. Like, I don't know. I mean, he really sort of just like, unless the Nationals, I mean, this isn't, it's not only the Nationals, I guess the Red Sox, the Braves, the Phillies. I mean, a lot of teams would have had to be so dramatically wrong for them to like not ever promote him, because he's been around. I mean, he's been in the minor leagues for like 12 years. He's not like he started with the Brave system at age 19. He's now 30. That's not what? He's old, man. Yo, bro, you're old. 30 years old? Damn. Yeah, so I don't know. Like, to be in the minor leagues like that many years, to be in the minor leagues for over a decade, and to have multiple teams look at you and be like, you suck. It's go try something else, man. For so many teams to be like, even like, you can't even write off like 2020. I don't even know what he was doing in 2019. He must have had an injury, because he didn't even play in 2019. So he didn't play from 2018 to 2021. I don't know. I don't know the story of Joey Meneses. Joey Meneses. Joey Menzies. I think it's just one of those fluky Kevin Moss type deals where like he's having a great, final month and a half, and then next year you get him like late, like around like 225, 250 overall, and you're like, you suckers took Rizzo at 120 and I got Joey Menzies. And then like you get 2 weeks into the season, it's like, oh yeah, I have Joey Menzies and I have to drop him. I don't have any real hope for him, but I guess we'll see. It's not like, I mean, his numbers, I mean, his BABIP's high, but it's not like his hard hit is okay. I mean, he's not like he's doing like he's not being terribly lucky. Like, he looks like he's actually making really good contact, but also, at the end of the year, pitchers aren't really like, like pitchers are just throwing. Like, there's a lot of bad pitchers in the major leagues right now. In September, there's all these guys who are just like trying to eat up innings for a lot of bad teams, or even good teams. Like right now, the Braves are throwing guys out there, even like the Mets are throwing guys out there. Like, good teams are throwing guys out there who wouldn't normally be pitching, just because they have to eat up some innings just to get them, to October. And, a lot of pitchers aren't familiar with him. So it's like, oh, just throw him a fastball. Who cares kind of situation. I don't know. I sound real negative on him, but I don't have much hope in him. I don't know. Maybe you have more hope. Do you?
I will say to the point that you were making about the contact, like all the contact numbers look good. The average exit velocity, launch angle, hard hit rate, all that looks good over the limited sample size that we've seen. Um, it's one of those things where like he would have been up in the majors in 2019, but he got popped for a PED thing. So 2019 he didn't play at all because of that. 2020 obviously was a lost season for every minor leaguer. And then so it becomes 2021. He's a 29-year-old prospect who gets shipped twice again. So to some extent, I'm willing to forgive the fact he's a 30-year-old that's just making his appearance. But at the same time, he's hit as a 28% home run the fly ball. That's not sustainable. He's hitting 326. That's also not sustainable for him. So I would guess for me, he probably comes in around where like Jorge Soler was going this year. So like 200, 220, somewhere in that range where like I think there's power there. There's some upside, but it could be somebody you cut bait on 3 weeks into the season
Yeah.
without a doubt.
No, completely. And also, I mean, in to defend him, or at least in fairness to him, he was at first base, doing well in the minor leagues, like AAA. He had a 23 homer, 311 season, and then another AAA season where he was like injured, but he did well in it. Like he's hit well in the minor leagues, but he's at first base behind either Rhys Hoskins, or he's at first base behind Matt Olson. Oh, not Matt. Freddie Freeman, actually. He was at first base with the Braves. So he's behind Freddie Freeman for a while, behind Rhys Hoskins with the Phillies. Then, with Boston, I don't think he was behind anyone, but that was last year. So, yeah, I mean, in fairness to him, he was behind guys who were just so much better that there was nowhere for him to play. So I don't know, maybe there's something here. And that was, the NL didn't have the DH prior to this year, so now they have room for him. Maybe he's a late bloomer and he has like a 20 homer 260 season in him next year. I wouldn't project him for much more than that, though.
Yeah, I think if I'm going on the upside, I think the power could be real. I think he could hit 25 to 30 home runs. I do not believe that he's a 326 hitter. I would guess he's closer to 250, 260. And that's really just because he doesn't really strike out. Like his strikeout rates have always been good through every spot. So I don't want to give him like a 220 and drop him completely because he does seem to have a decent eye for the ball. But yeah, I'm expecting something closer to 250, 260. And then again, I think where I might have a little more optimism is the power. I think he could potentially do that. And I mean, there's no reason he can't slot in for them at first base. Doesn't appear like Washington is trying to be overly aggressive in their moves right now. So, they're rebuilding and trying to get pieces together. So he can be, a gap piece for a year while they do figure that out. Him and Luke Voigt, maybe they swap first base DH, and he's played enough games to get outfield eligibility for next year. So that'll be nice to have dual eligibility, at least on those late flyers. That's something that I like at least if I'm going to take a guy at the very end, maybe I can at least move him around and be shitty in multiple positions.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So a guy that we were both very high on this year that I loved, you loved, we have him in drafts, we have him in league, we have him everywhere. Not quite the season we thought we were going to get from him. Wander Franco. Yeah. 18 games in September, he's turned it around. 328, 362, 422. No home runs, no stolen bases isn't great to see. But what are you doing with Wander next year? Like, I feel like we kind of maybe need to group him with the next guy we're going to talk about, which is Steven Kwan, which just, that hurts my head. Oh, go ahead, Greg. I can't say anything else.
What? Honestly, like if you're, so this is a either or, a Wander Franco or Andres Gimenez. Which one?
I mean, I feel like it's Andres Gimenez. I feel like the stolen bases are there.
I mean, recency bias is like
it is. It's 100% recency bias.
It's a killer, man. Recency bias will kill you because it's like because people are like because next year I'm gonna be guilty of it too. So don't get me wrong, but next year like I'm gonna put like Aaron Judge in the top 5 overall because you have to. But like this year, going into the year, he was like I don't know at like 35,
12 to 25.
Yeah, no, Aaron Judge was, I think Aaron Judge's ADP was like 25 to 35.
He was 32, Gray. He was
32.
Yeah.
Okay, so crazy. 32. Yeah, so 25 to 35. Eat it. So anyway, though, so 32, now he's going to be top 5. Probably some people will make the case that he's the top guy off of the board. It's like recency bias and nothing else, really. Like, why would Aaron Judge suddenly go from the 30s to number 1 at age 30? Like, that doesn't make sense, really. But it's going to happen. So, I don't know. So, on that note, bringing this back to Wander Franco, it's going to be the same situation with recency bias. Like, people will be like, he was probably better at at like 120 to 140 overall, getting drafted there. And it's going to be, I mean, I already feel like I'm going to have to write a sleeper post on Wander Franco. Like, he's not bad. He just had a bad season, a really unfortunate season with injuries. And I don't know, man. I think Wander Franco is like definitely Andres Gimenez over Wander Franco, but Wander Franco is going to be a guy who I'm gonna have to be in on him again, especially at his cheaper price. Like, I'm not giving up on Wander Franco. Like, I still believe in the 25, 15, 300 plus. Like, that's still there. I still fully believe in it. I think I mean, Wander Franco or Steven Kwan, I don't even think's close. I think Steven Kwan is Steven Kwan for me is still like around basically what he was for me this year, like around maybe a little bit higher, but maybe like 120 to 140, 150 overall. I don't think I think Steven Kwan's like a number 3 to number 4 outfielder. I don't think he's that good. I mean, he's fine. I don't mind Steven Kwan. I liked him this year. I drafted him in a lot of places. But yeah, I don't think Steven Kwan suddenly become like a number 1 outfielder.
No, I was thinking of it more in just the fact that Steven Kwan has pretty much become average with stolen bases and in runs. Like, that's what he's
okay.
do.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas Wander's going to do home runs, average, and runs. So I mean, we're just looking at kind of different stats. I don't know. I'm with you that like people are going to give up on Wander. I will probably be back in on him come next draft season again. But like, if we're saying Andres Gimenez, he's going to go. I'm just going to say he gets 2020 this year, and he hits 300. I mean, he's hitting 303 right now. I would say Wander probably has him in average ability. I would say Wander has him in power ability. That's probably about it, though. Like speed, I'm going to hand to Andres. Continuously in the lineup. I mean, Cleveland doesn't move guys in and out like Tampa Bay does. You think Tampa Bay is not going to do that with Wander, hopefully, since and he bats both sides. But who knows? It's Tampa Bay. They're freaking weird. But I mean, you're right. I mean, it should be Wander hands down. I just don't know.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, I think Wander. Wander's going to be a tough one. I mean, it's not going to be an easy call. But even in a totally awful season, he still has the potential of hitting 280 this year. I mean, he's at 275 right now. He could end this year at 280 with no power or speed. Obviously, it was a bad year, and I'm not going to pretend like it was a good year. But even in a bad year, he still has the potential to hit 280. I think in a good year, like he could be a 320 guy very easily. And I don't know if the power, I don't think we've seen the power and speed like the ceiling yet. I still totally believe in a big year for Wander Franco, 100%.
Yeah, I guess the one place I might disagree is the speed. Because if you haven't peaked speed, it's not going to get better. Your speed doesn't get better as you get older. I completely agree on the power and the average. I do think he has a batting title or maybe several batting titles in his future. But the concern with Wander coming into the year was, does he have the power speed to really make him a fantasy asset?
Right. Yeah.
You don't that question hasn't been answered yet.
Right. You don't want to draft Luis Ariz at like 75 overall.
Yeah, 50. I mean, that's where we had to take Wander this year, was around 45, 50.
Right. Wander, yeah. The next year, I mean, maybe 100. I don't know. He'll probably fall to 120. In that range. I wouldn't be surprised if he falls after 100. I probably have him above that, but I mean, like we're saying here, I don't think I could take like him before an Andres Gimenez. It's just, I mean, recency bias, man. It's a killer.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I like to say I'm going to get him inside my 100, like some way, shape, or form. Um, but you're right. I mean, recency bias is hard to look past sometimes, and especially when the recency bias also doesn't really play into what you wanted to see. You know, if Wander had come out and hit 10 home runs and 10 stolen bases in a month, we'd feel a whole lot better about it than him hitting like 280 and 5-5. Like that's like the average is what we're counting on. But yes, I do think he gets inside the top 100. I'd say probably around 80-ish is where I think he probably ends up, somewhere around the area that, like, I don't know, like Bregman was going this year, kind of that same scenario. Like, is the power speed going to be there? Right,
Right.
middle lineup type bat.
Yeah. Yeah. Potentially.
All right, so we already talked about Steven Kwan. I really just kind of wanted to bring it up because as much as we talked about him right off the bat and then killed him and then ignored him for the rest of the season, like he's pretty much been what we thought he would be, other than 1 month. And it sounds like you said you have him at kind of outfielder 3-4. I think that's probably the right area for him. He's going to give you average and stolen bases and some runs, and like that's
Hmm.
about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like Steven Kwan. I just don't like him necessarily a ton more than I liked him last year. I mean, I liked him coming into this year. Like he did basically what I expected him to do, minus like maybe 10 homers. Maybe yeah. I mean, I expected probably closer to like maybe 12. I expected probably closer to like 12 homers. And yeah, I mean, he's been, maybe 12 to 15 if I forget what I project him for, but I did expect more power. And yeah, I mean, he's been fine. He actually, the times that I've watched him and he has homered, like the few times, like you see him homer and you're like, well, he has good power. Like he should be able to turn on balls and hit it out like a little bit more regularly. Like maybe, I'm not saying he's like a big power threat, but maybe like 2 to 3 homers per month, which prorates out to like, 15 to 18 homers a year. But yeah, I mean, his power sort of disappears there for long stretches, but his average is good. And as long as the Guardians have him batting leadoff, I mean, there's going to be runs there. So, yeah, I mean, I think he is what he is at this point. I don't mind him. I just don't like, if anything, when people were drafting Miles Straw last year, I think Quan is a better version of Miles Straw. Like, he's like Miles Straw never was this, like, I would never have been this confident on Miles Straw getting this kind of average that you're going to get from Steven Kwan. Straw has a bit more speed, just like he's just faster. But I think Quan has enough speed and a much better contact and average that he's going to be, what people thought they might have been getting from Straw. Like Quan can actually do it, and I think he can do it again next year.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I think you saw Straw go like 130 to 150 this year. I think that's still the right range for Quan.
Yeah, that
Again,
sounds right. Yeah.
it's going to be 3 categories, so it's very helpful, very useful. It just kind of depends on how you're building your team. And unlike like a Luis Ariz, who gave you multiple position eligibility plus that average, he's really just outfield. So um, moving on, let's talk about a few pitchers before we get out of here, Gray. I think maybe two. Um, I mean, you see the list here. Let's talk about Shane Bieber, I guess. Never got his velocity back this year. The numbers are still elite. The K rate has dropped. So it's still very, very serviceable. Where are you at on Beeps for next year, though? Is he your safe ace, or is this concerning enough that maybe you look
You look
somewhere
somewhere
else?
else.
Uh, yeah, I mean, it's so weird because like when a guy's velocity drops, that's usually the that's the enough to be like sell, get out now, And he's actually made a lesser velocity work for him, and he's still so young that it's kind of wild how much velocity he's lost. to not be injured. I mean, assuming he's not injured. I mean, I'm guessing he's not because he's been really very good, except, the Ks are down and the velocity is down. So, I mean, he's making his command work for him much better. He's got, great command. So if he can have, like right now, he's got a 1.7 walk per nine. If he can have anything below a 2, he's going to be he's going to be worthwhile and probably an ace as long as the Ks don't fall again next year. Because, like now, I would guess everyone's projections for him for next year is going to say his Ks are going to go up again, but they could easily come down even further. Like he can become like an 8.5 K per nine guy, and, his Ks can continue to fall. Now, if his walks stay fine, then he's good, but you're also looking at basically like a rich Miles Mikolas or something, which is like not great. So I like Bieber. I don't think I'm going to be in on him, to be honest. I mean, that could change. It's still, it's September. During the long off season, maybe I look at him again and I think about like, the fact that he is, relatively safe, assuming he's healthy. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't see it. The Ks are down too much. The velocity being down, I'm probably out on him next year. But we'll see. It depends also on, I guess, maybe his ADP, but I'm guessing I'm probably going to be out on him.
Yeah, I would guess his ADP is gonna be fairly high up there. People love Shane Bieber, and again, the numbers have been great. He hasn't really lost anything on the ERA WHIP. It's all been on the K rate, which again for Major League Baseball is perfectly fine. For our game, not ideal. I tend to chase strikeouts with my top couple of pitchers, so I likely won't have Shane Bieber. But I'm not overly worried about him as far as just the ratios go. I think they're safe there. He's in a good park. He knows what he's doing. And I feel like he has, kind of the Greg Maddux level control and command where this velocity isn't going to hurt him like it hurts a lot of other pitchers who rely on movement.
Yeah, and also like I don't know if you saw this in our group chat on the Razzball Writers group chat. Rudy was saying something that was interesting, that like this year it felt more like there was a lot of top pitchers, or at least for ERA. So a lot of top ERAs in the league are coming with like not necessarily elite strikeout rates like previous years. Like, Alek Manoah's got an 8.3 K per nine. Julio Urias has an 8.6. Sandy Alcantara has an 8.1. Max Fried 8.3. These are all in the top 10 for ERAs. So, I wasn't just grabbing random names. So a lot of guys who are like top ERAs aren't necessarily top strikeout guys for this year, at least. So I don't know what that means necessarily yet. It's something to think about though, because like Shane Bieber having a great ERA, his 9K per nine is actually on the high side for the top ERAs. Like, he's sort of in line with Justin Verlander. Like, it's not too far off. Like, Verlander's at 9.2 K per nine, and Bieber's at a 9 even. So, that's sort of tomato, really. That's not that different. So like, I don't know what that means. Like, honestly, but it's something. I mean, the fact that these ERAs are so good and the Ks aren't necessarily as great as they've been, I don't know. Maybe maybe it was a weird fluky year. Maybe none of that means anything. But Ks overall feel like they were down a bit from previous years for top starters. I'm just, I'm sort of this is all off the top of my head. I haven't necessarily looked at this completely, but it does feel like the top K per nine guys are just like not like there's a lot fewer of them. Like it seems like Ks are down. I don't know if that's true or not, but it feels that way at least. So I don't know. I guess we'll see.
No, I would guess that they are slightly down. Um,
Yeah,
and
because like even like Robbie Ray went from 11.5 to a 10.2. Like all the top K guys have really like except for like a few like Otani obviously is doing well. Rodon's doing well. Garrett Cole's doing well for K's. But a lot of guys have come down. Like even even Otani, he's down a little bit from his on his K per nine. Just actually, he's up. I'm sorry, he's up. I was looking at I was looking at his pitching. I mean, his batting stats. But yeah, I mean, so there's a few guys who are still the top of the top, but there's a bunch of guys like there's only 10 guys in the major leagues who are qualifying who have a who have a 10 K per nine or better. That seems low. I don't know. I'm just looking at this now, but it does feel like K's are down a little. So I don't know.
yeah, I mean, I feel like they are down slightly, and I'm trying to pull up the numbers to show that real quick. But I think part of it may also be the adjustment in the ball that they made this year. Um, when they made the adjustment in the ball doesn't fly as far, so pitchers don't have to chase strikeouts as much because they can lean into just their players making plays behind them. Yeah, I mean, I dropped it down to 140 innings pitched. There's 25 pitchers that had a K per nine over 9 with 140. Last year was 25. So we were looking at this small difference. Oh, hold on, that was different. But yeah, I think there's reasons. It's 45, I believe, from last year. So definitely a cut.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty big difference.
Yeah. So I mean, we lost about 13 pitchers who went from 9K per nine and didn't make it back this year for whatever reason, whether that's the sticky stuff, whether that's the ball change, for whatever reason.
Oh yeah, this is a full season of the sticky stuff checks too. Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. Yeah, that could also definitely play into it. I mean, like I said, I mean, I'm just looking at this now, but it does feel like strikeouts are down by me just glancing at the top starters because there's not like usually like in years past there's a bunch of guys who have like insane Ks, and this year it just doesn't feel that way. Now it could be also the ball, maybe it's the sticky stuff, and also it could have something to do with the ball and that hitters have adjusted and they know that it's harder to hit a home run, so maybe they're not swinging for the fences as much, so they're not striking out. I don't know. It's just that's all conjecture. I don't know.
No, Ks definitely are down though. I mean, we're at 8.16 K per nine this year. Last year we were at 8.62, so almost a half K per nine down from last year, and that's pretty much in line with the last 3 seasons what we've seen data wise. So yeah, I mean we're down about. I mean that's a significant drop there in the Ks, Gray.
Right. Yeah. No. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, it felt that way. So yeah, it's good that the stats actually back it up.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Gray. Before we get out of here, real quick, since we're sagging off in for our listeners so that they can chase down every last potential save, anything for them out of the bullpen before we sign off?
Yeah. Okay. So Brandon Hughes. if you're looking for saves and you want to lose, go with Brandon Hughes. Yeah. No. So Brandon Hughes, it seems like there's he's potential for saves. And also there was rumors that the Yankees might be DFAing Aroldis Chapman, which would be I mean, talk about something you would never have guessed at the beginning of the year. I mean, that would be crazy. And not that he's getting saves or not that he's even gotten saves for the last 4 months, but to think the Yankees would DFA Aroldis Chapman. I mean, that would be wild. Just such a far departure from the beginning of the year. Anyway, Dodgers, Craig Kimbrell has sucked and continues to suck and has sucked for a while now. he's been pretty bad for a long time. It's actually pretty amazing that it feels sometimes like teams don't look at guys on other teams like when they're playing for other teams. Because if the Dodgers would have just taken a second and looked at Kimbrell on his last 2 teams, they would have been like, oh, he's not good. It's not. I mean, it's not a stretch to say Kimbrel hasn't been good for a few years now, but the Dodgers went out and got him, and they've now officially, I think, maybe not officially, but they've sort of moved on. I think I would go with Evan Phillips if I were, trying to grab every last save. I think Chris Martin could potentially get a save or two. I was also, I said in last week's buy sell that like Rafael Montero and Raciel Iglesias and maybe Seth Lugo or like any setup guys for big time closers. With the final 10 days of the season, there's a potential where the good teams might want to rest their closers in the final maybe weekend or final 5 days potentially. So I would look at it depends on how badly you need saves, but like a guy James Karinchak over in the Guardians, maybe potentially. Any of those guys could potentially get saves, I think.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. I don't know what's going on. I guess the Dodgers are resting Kimbrel / seeing who's actually going to close for them when the games matter. So yeah, I mean, Evan Phillips or Bruce Dark Adderall could potentially be there. Andres Munoz got a save. I think it's still Sewell's job for the most part, but if you're just looking around, I mean that could be a potential. But yeah, I think that's pretty much all we got here, Gray. As always, if you have specific questions,
you're not doing the waiver wire.
We can throw some waiver names out there. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know if there's a waiver wire left.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But anyway, Brian De La Cruz, he's been hot for the Marlins. So if you need an outfield bat, he's had I think he's had a couple homers in the last week or so. I actually in one league where I really needed steals, I went out and got Nate Eaton, who hasn't even been necessarily playing every day, but every day he gets in the game and he steals a lot. I don't. They've been using him as a pinch runner. I think he had 8 steals in the last month. So Nate Eaton, if you're really hungry for saves. And then there's also Jonathan Daza, but that's probably more of a Coors play. He was good in Coors, though, the previous week. There's also Ezekiel Tovar got called up by the Rockies. Again, it's probably better play if they're in Coors, but, you never know. You might catch lightning in the bottle the final week. I would go for probably a hot bat versus just a hot call up, but it depends on what you need. Oswaldo Cabrera, if your league's shallow enough where he's available, actually in a 15-team league, I picked up Oswaldo Cabrera off of Fab this past week. He's been really good. He looks great. Watching the Yankees because of Judge, I've caught a lot of Oswaldo Cabrera, and he's looked really good. And also Connor Capel has been hot for Oakland, and that's a definitely just a schmatato. So I don't know. Anyone you got there beat on?
Akil Badu, apparently you just need to play him in September. That's when he does his work. So he's doing it. Ramel Tapia, again, if you're just chasing some steals and you don't really care what else happens to you. Levon Soto's been getting reps for the Angels, so that's very kind of random. And he's actually been performing. So there's some guys. Real quick, there's some pitchers that have been performing that have at least solid matchups coming up this week. Adrian Sampson, Bailey Falter, Runzi Contreras, Dean Kramer, Joey Wentz, Herman Marquez, Johan Oviedo. I think that's what I got for everybody out there, Gray.
Cool, man.
Yeah, so everybody, good luck in your last 10 days. I think next week we're going to be back with a player rater review, and then we'll wrap up the season with a look forward into our top 25 for 2023 the following week. If you have any specific questions as you are getting down to these last 10 days, as always, put them in the comments. Come find us on Twitter. I'm at RazBeaton. Gray's, of course, the @Rasball account, or go on YouTube and put them underneath the videos there in the comments. We will try and get out there and answer those so you can take home your titles. Until next time, good luck as you wrap up your season.
Lates.